All right, so Michael, you got the next thing. What are we talking about?
Well, as a lot of you guys know, we've been having a blast doing our Mandalorian reviews and our WandaVision reviews, but we didn't want to just keep everything to Disney Plus, and we definitely want to review all the awesome superhero stuff that's out there. So although this doesn't get its entirely own episode in the 2-hour maximum deep dive the way that WandaVision does, we definitely wanted to talk about the CW's brand new Superman and Lois, which just premiered this week. Right. It stars Tyler Hoechlin and Elizabeth Tulloch as Clark Kent and Lois Lane, reprising their roles that they played in the Arrowverse, in the Crisis series, but giving them a lot more to do and really focusing on Superman and Lois moving to Smallville and raising their twin sons, Jonathan and Jordan. Just diving right in, as a huge Superman fan, I really was super pleasantly surprised. I wasn't quite sure what to expect from this. And the opening of the series, it was kind of a maxi special. It was over an hour long, and it kind of opens up with a brief sort of let's give you the Cliff's Notes version of Superman and Lois. And I texted my friend and I was like, well, I feel like this is an episode of This Is Us because I'm already bawling. I love Superman. And this hit me right in the feels. So I was very pleasantly surprised, but like, what did you guys think? We can get into the details in the nitty gritty, but what were your guys' overall impression of Superman and Lois?
Shannon?
Overall, I thought it was really, really well done. The showing a Man of Steel that has this humanity, that is a family man, like something we haven't seen on screen really before, him getting to be the dad of two teenagers. I thought it worked really well. And that opening sequence, I mean, I was right there with you. I certainly got that lump in my throat a couple of times. It was just really well done. There are aspects to the show, which we'll talk about, that I'm not the biggest fan of, and I think that will affect whether or not I keep going with the series. But the writing, the writing was just great. I mean, the setup is fantastic.
Yeah, I have to say, I was pleasantly surprised. There is no one who was more skeptical than me going in to watch this, because when Michael proposed it, I was like, oh, all right, let me see, maybe. And I'd read not a bad review, but a middling review on The Hollywood Reporter. I think that's where I read it. And I was very skeptical, even more so. But then other people who I respect in the sphere that we're in chimed in on Twitter and were speaking glowingly about it. So that made me more excited to it and to watch it. And when I started watching it, I was immediately hooked. I loved the approach. This is a more realistic approach. Dare I say, a darker approach to Superman. Dare for those Snyder people out there, a darker approach, a more realistic, a more human approach. And look, I hated Superman Returns because Super Kid turned me the F off. That is one of the biggest reasons why I didn't like that movie, but it works here. The world they've presented to you works so well. The relationship between him and Lois is so believable. The two kids, the fact that you have one who's a high school star and another kid who's got a social anxiety disorder, the way they tackled that and confronted that at times infuriated me, excited me. I liked it, and so it challenged me, and I love that. And the world they've built out of Smallville versus Metropolis, this idea, the throwing in some of the MAGA stuff, throwing in some of the different points of views politically of people, all of that I really enjoyed. And as I just said, the fact that it challenged me made me excited to watch it. The direction, the cinematography, the writing, all of it just really worked. I found myself enjoying it greatly, Michael.
Yeah, just keying off of what you said a little bit there at the beginning, on the darker front, I found myself really enjoying it because as someone who is not the biggest Zack Snyder fan,
yes,
as someone who doesn't love Man of Steel, I know you guys both like it a lot more than I do. Oftentimes you get accused of you just don't like a dark Superman. You just want it to be the way it was. And I thought that what was great about Superman and Lois is, look, presenting a Superman who's married with two kids, like that's a very different Superman. Yeah. And presenting him in a situation where he's dealing with some loss, the way that he's trying to be a father. Like there's definitely like darker elements. This isn't just a happy-go-lucky Boy Scout who's saving the day. Like he's dealing with very real things. Yet at the same time, Tyler Hoechlin's performance as both Superman and Clark Kent, I feel, very much captures the spirit of who I like Superman being. You know, at the very beginning when he saves that kid from the car and you get that awesome action comics shot, that homage, and he gives the kid his hat and he's like, hey, nice hat. And he's like, hey, nice costume. And he's like, thanks, my mom made it. And he flies off. It's like, yeah, that's my guy. That's Superman. So I really like that, you know, this isn't just a retread of old Superman. This isn't just Christopher Reeve's Richard Donner Superman redone. Like, this is a different Superman. And to your point, I thought that, you know, even though Smallville is this great small town to grow up in, they dealt with, to your point, people with different political views. They dealt with farms foreclosing, people not being able to afford their lives, people not being able to afford their farms, meth labs, clinical depression, as you said. Like, and what I think is great about that is because they've created a show for Superman where we're still going to see Superman fly around and save the day and have freeze breath and heat vision and all the cool things that Superman has. But the problems that he's dealing with, particularly the problems as Clark Kent the dad, are things that you can't punch your way out of. And I think that that's what's really, really great. I also want to give Elizabeth Tulloch credit because I was not the biggest fan of her when she showed up in the Arrowverse as Lois Lane. Granted, she wasn't given a ton to do, but I wasn't quite sure. And I really felt like she stepped it up in this. Granted, she was given a lot more material. She's kind of carrying it as the mom, but I thought she did a really nice job as Lois. She definitely felt Lois Lane to me.
Shannon? What do you
think? The performances are really the thing that is going to hold me back. Dylan Walsh, I thought, was great as General Lane. That's a great supporting character that I would hope they would use more. Tyler Hoechlin, when he was in and I wasn't a huge Supergirl watcher, but I watched a lot of it. Yeah. He was a great supporting player in a show about someone else. Doing his own show, I'm not quite sure yet. I feel like some of those more emotional moments, they felt a little fabricated, a little empty to me. But it's also the first episode. Elizabeth Tulloch, I am not a fan of. Like, I watched the first few seasons of Grimm, which I love the concept of Grimm. I love some of the episodes. But again, I was just not a big fan of hers. And while I do think she did a very good job, it still is not to where I would want it to be, to where I could enjoy the show without nitpicking it to death.
I think I fall somewhere in the middle between you guys. I like their chemistry. I think if you're going to cast these two's chemistry really works for this version of Superman and Lois. I agree with you, Michael. He's the big blue Boy Scout, but I think, Shannon, to your point, I think the reason they present all these multiple storylines and all these multiple characters is because they understand these two people just leading a show isn't necessarily going to sell it. You need to have other actors around to kind of create almost an ensemble show, even though it's called Superman and Lois. And the two kids, I thought, did a really good job.
Yeah,
I agree.
As his sons. I was looking for stereotypical stuff, and yes, there were a couple of things like the kid listening to loud music, playing video games. Of course, it's fighting video games, but I understood they were doing for the broad brushstrokes, but the specificity of the interactions were really well done, I thought, between the kids, and believable. And I don't have kids. It frustrated me, but it made me stop and go, yeah, you can say that because you're not a dad. You don't know what it would be like to have a kid who has social anxiety disorder who says you're a bad dad or yells at you. You've got to power through that stuff. As you said, Mike, you can't punch your way through that stuff. You got to actually figure that stuff out. This is your blood. You've got to figure it out. It's a challenge. Also, Emmanuelle Chriqui being in there, I haven't always been the biggest fan of her, but this is a good role for her. Like, when she finds a good role, Emmanuelle can shine, and you can tell there's going to be more going on with Lana than just what Lana's presenting. She certainly wouldn't marry this dude unless she's got some points of views that mirror the guy that she's with. And how does that reflect? And what's going to happen if one of those kids gets involved with the daughter there? What's that going to lead to? The fact that she got caught on the Facebook group talking to Clark, the fact that she immediately brings up this time that they all got together at a terrible, I can't remember the 90s band they mentioned, the concert they were at, or 2000s band, whatever it is.
Was it Soul Asylum?
Yes, I guess it was. But that kind of stuff, it added it has a groundness to this that I was not expecting. And but I will say this about Elizabeth Tulloch. I wanted to see her do stuff, and it wasn't until the end of the show that she finally got to be Lois Lane. And so I'd like to see a little more Lois Lane. Also, The fact that she didn't age for 15 to 17 years, I think, is a little bit. I'm like, come on, give me something, maybe a gray streak, maybe some more wrinkles. She looked the same when they met to when she had the kids, and I just want to see that. I know he can't age because he's Superman, but her a little bit. I want to see a little more age on her. But that's
ladies.
That's nitpicky.
Ladies can dye their hair. Don't.
No,
she's
but
got
the
a
wrinkles
regimen.
got to be there. The wrinkles got to be there.
She's got some creams.
Kryptonian medicine. That's yeah. Anyway,
I do want to
I don't. Yeah. Go ahead, man.
I do want to add one other big compliment and then one sort of like caution, I guess. Like I do think one of the things that I really enjoyed, like this was not shot like the other CW shows.
Yeah, man.
Agreed.
This definitely, they definitely, and I think this is actually the good part about what's going on with streaming. Is obviously the shows that we get to see on streaming have like massive budgets and like look like movies. But what you're seeing now is because we have Mandalorians and WandaVisions and Falcons and Winter Soldiers coming along, that even on CW, like they have to up their game. And the difference between the way that your typical CW show, like what we are used to seeing as our superhero TV shows on network are shot, and the way that this was shot is like leaps and bounds different. The effects were better, the cinematography was better, just everything about it had this more movie-like feel, which I thought was really, really nice. Yeah. Now, that being said, I think one of the cautions is this show could go one of two ways, and I could very easily see it. They clearly, like, they have a bigger arc of the season that they're planning out that involves Morgan Edge and this stranger who is revealed to be somebody interesting at the end of the episode. But it could very much still fall into, like, you know, episodic show of the week, villain of the week. And, you know, I think that the thing about a lot of the CW shows, to me, who watched them for like religiously for a long time and then sort of fell off, was they'll have like a really strong vision for the first season and then it kind of meanders and then it kind of gets over here. Like I could just see this show sort of wandering off into a more typical direction, and I hope it doesn't, because everything about it right now feels so atypical.
I think that's a great point you bring up, Michael, because you can't present these very charged relationships and then like forget them for a couple episodes or forget them for the, like, people have to negotiate these relationships on a daily basis in their lives. And of course, is he going to stay in Smallville? Is he going to go to Metropolis? Like, what's going to be the situation here? We're going to see that as it progresses, because certainly the surprise he gets in this, the tragic surprise, and then the other surprise on top of it, that I think might have a little bit of shady stuff going on that is very relevant to people suffering through things like this nowadays. Very topical in that way. If they let go of those relationships and go into that villain of the week stuff, you're going to really undercut what you so effectively presented in the pilot episode. And listen, not a lot of pilot episodes knock it out of the park. They just get you a taste and you're like, I want to see more. This one, I think, knocked it out of the park, that they hooked me, that I will now be putting this in my rotation, and I didn't expect to be honest with you. So I like that. Any final words on it, Shannon? Anything to talk you back into maybe keeping going with this, or are you going to give it a few more episodes? Maybe?
No, I would give it a few more episodes.
Okay.
It's not something I'm gonna pull the ripcord on right away, because again, I thought what they got a whole lot right.
Yes, they did.
And you know, the whole, like, basically what Vogel was saying about the non-traditional CW vibe that it had, that the fact that they're leaning into more of a cinematic story. There was just so much good from it. Yeah. But there are, you know, performances is one of the things that can take me out of a story. So it is a show that I will give a few more episodes of, and we'll see what happens from there.
I mean, yeah. And one last thing, that interaction between Morgan Edge's character and Lois Lane, Elizabeth Tulloch, the back and forth, I think that's an essential part of this show. If they can present both sides in a way that's fair to both sides, but still calling out both sides, I want to see how they walk this path, you know, and if they can do it effectively, I wonder. Because once you present a character like that, you have a responsibility to that character. And if you go stereotypical, then you've really undercut the power that could be there with your show. I don't know if you feel that way too, Michael, but that's how I look at it.
Are you you mean Lana's husband? Is that what you're talking
Lana's
about?
husband.
Yeah. Okay. I thought it was interesting. I think that I think that in the case of Lana's husband, I think he probably will end up not being a really great guy. But I think that some of the concerns that he has and the things that he raises, I like seeing Lois and Clark coming into an area where, particularly I think Lois Lane works really well where she thinks she knows everything, because that's who she is as a person. And I think being challenged by her with different viewpoints is good. So I do hope they do that more with some of the other, to your point, to some of the other characters in Smallville, since I have a feeling Lana's husband is going to go down a more typical bad guy road at some point. The fact that he's the firefighter-ness aside, he doesn't strike me as a great guy.
Yeah, well, we'll see. We'll see. Certainly, for sure. And shout out to everybody involved in this. Give a real quick one. Lee Toland Krieger, James Bamford, and Rachel Talalale are directing the episodes here, but it's also from Greg Berlanti, Katie Aldrin, and Todd Helbing is involved in this as one of the developers of this series as well. Jay Jameson, Brent Fletcher, Joe Schuster, of course, and Jerry Siegel, rather, are the creators, Nadria Tucker and Andrew Wong. So those are the people involved so far in the episodes. And Mike, is this going to be, how many episodes is this going to be? Do you know?
I think it's just a typical season order, so 20-something episodes. I mean, I believe so. Wow. I might be wrong. I might be wrong about that. I could be wrong. I don't know, but
all right.
But however many it is, I will check it out at least for a season.
On IMDb, it's got 15 episodes, so I think that would be great. 15 episodes of this series would be fantastic to sink our teeth into, and we shall see. All right. Well, real quick, because we might clip this out, I'll just do this now. Let us know what you thought about the episode if you watched it in the comments section below. Like this video, subscribe to the channel as well, and all of that. We're always open to your comments. We appreciate it. All right.